Hello everyone, this is Ernie Hartman, Technical Services Manager at AMP Global. In this video, we're going to review product pages on the PAC website. This will help you better understand how things are laid out and where to find items such as compatibility notes, instruction manuals, tech briefs, and firmware updates. Let's start by looking up a vehicle. One that I get asked about quite a bit would be a 2018 Chevrolet Silverado. So let's go ahead and look that up. Okay, so here we have our results page. So as you can see here, you get quite a bit of results. All the way through AMP Pros and video modules. So as I showed you in the previous video, we can go ahead and filter some of that out by checking radio replacement. So now we've gotten rid of anything that is not relevant to radio replacement. So we'll start with the interface. So you can see here we have an RP5 module, an RP5 harness, and LC modules. So which one do you use, you ask? So let's go ahead and click on this RP5, visit the product page, and take a look at the compatibility notes. So as you can see here on the product page, you have many tabs, one of which is compatibility notes. So let's have a look. Does not retain factory satellite radio. PAC up required to configure vehicle settings. What does that mean? Well, in the factory radio, there is a menu that has vehicle settings. We allow you to retain those with the use of a PAC up and a laptop. Most of the time people don't mess with those vehicle settings, so that's not really a big concern. Now, here we see one that answers one of our questions. How do I know which one to use? 2016 plus vehicles with RPO codes IOA or IOB must also use the RP5 GM52 harness. RPO codes can be found on a silver sticker either in the glove box, which is in the trucks, or in the trunk near the spare tire well. So here we have a Silverado, which is a truck. So in this case, you would pop open the upper glove box and look for a silver sticker that has a bunch of codes on it. So in this case, if you see IOA or IOB, you know you also need to use this harness. Now we've provided a link here for you. You can right click, open link in new tab. So as we see here, this was the harness that was also displayed in the vehicle results. So now we know if we've got an IOA or an IOB, that we also need this harness in conjunction with the GM51. Let's have a look at its compatibility notes. Same thing. This harness is only necessary when the vehicle has IOA or IOB RPO code. RPO codes can be found on a silver sticker in the glove compartment or in the trunk near the spare tire well. Must be used in conjunction with the RP5 GM51. Okay. So let's have a look on down. So we know we're not doing a Colorado or Canyon, we're not doing a Tahoe, we're not doing Impala. Oh, look at this. It does not retain RSE system. So if you have a truck that has a rear seat entertainment system, it will be lost on this. 2014 vehicles. Doesn't apply to us. We have a 2018 Silverado. Look at this. Does not retain Bose amplifier. Information on how to bypass the factory amps included in the instructions. So just a little bit deeper on that. The Bose amp and the rear seat entertainment system all operate on a MOST network. That is basically digital audio and video over copper. This module is not set up to retain those things. Also, here's another one. Does not retain steering wheel control backlighting. So if you or your customer drive a lot at night, you will notice that once this module's been used, the lights behind the buttons on the steering wheel controls will no longer function. All right, let's go back to our vehicle results page. Okay, so now underneath the RP5s we see LC modules. Well, what's the difference between an RP5 and an LC? Basically, an RP5 will retain steering wheel controls, OnStar, gives you all the necessary signals for your aftermarket radios, such as accessory wire, reverse wire, VSS wire, park and brake wire. An LC module only gives you an accessory turn-on. So in the case of the LCGM52, you can see the connectors here. This retains your factory aux and your factory backup camera. The LCGM51 does not do that. So how do we know which one to use? Let's go in and have a look. LCGM51. We scroll down, we come to the Compatibility Notes page. Only compatible in vehicles with IO3, IO4, IO5, or IO6 RPO code. Again, we have to look at the RPO codes. Vehicles that have the IOA or IOB RPO code must use the LCGM52. So you can think of this as like this is the RP5 GM51, but extremely dumbed down. And then we have the LCGM52, which is the same as an RP5 GM51 with the GM52 harness. But in this case, on the LCGM52, we give you the module with the harness. So there's no need to buy an additional harness with a module as they're separated. So there you have it. The LCGM51 follows the same standards as the RP5 GM51. It is just an extremely dumbed down version, low cost of an RP5. So now let's go back to our vehicle search page. Steering wheel control interfaces. So you would only need this if you're not using an RP5 or, actually either one of these steering wheel control interfaces is kind of the same as an LC. It's just universal. So you could use an RC1, a CP5, or a CP2, and any one of these would retain your steering wheel controls and give you an accessory output. The difference between this and an LC is that these would have to be hardwired into the vehicle. They are not plug and play. These are plug and play. These are plug and play. So let's keep going. Best kits. All right, so we just have one dash kit. That's pretty simple. Antenna adapters, simple. Speaker adapters. Backup camera retention harness. So this CAM GM51, if you were buying an RP5 GM51, you would also want to buy this because this gives you an easy plug-and-play solution for the reverse camera retention in a GM51 application. If you were not to purchase this, then you would have to hardwire the reverse camera. So now we're down here with the amp pros and stuff, which we don't care about. Notice that when we click back, it lost the filtering. So that's the Silverado. So let's move on to something else. Like something else I get asked a lot about would be we'll say a 2018 Jeep Wrangler. And we're going to specify the JL, or the new body style, versus the JK. So we'll go ahead and hit search. Wait for the results to load. So here we go. So now we're looking at all these results again. So if you remember in the other video, I showed you how to filter by body style. Because remember, we want the JL, not the JK. So we'll come down here, we'll go JL, hit search. Because the JL and the JK, even though they look the same on the outside, they're very different on the inside. So as you can see, it has removed quite a bit of stuff. So a lot of people always ask me about the Amp Pro in these and how do they know if it works or not. So let's go ahead and just click Amp Pro to get rid of everything that's irrelevant. So now we're presented with two modules, the AP4CH41 and the AP4CH41R2. Well, if you notice down here, the original one has been discontinued and replaced with the R2. So let's go click the R2, go to the product page, and have a look at what's going on here in the compatibility notes. So the R2 is compatible with both amplified and non-amplified factory systems. All right, that's good. Cherokee 200 Maserati, we don't care about that. This is a Wrangler. So now this is where we need to pay special attention to. So does your Wrangler have a factory amplifier? If so, you're good to go. Compatible with all data bus controlled amplified systems, no matter the screen size. That's it. To identify these systems, look for logos on the door speakers, tweeters, dash speakers, or the subwoofer to confirm if the vehicle has a compatible amplified system. Any one of these manufacturers, Alpine, Beats, any of them, they all work. So again, if you have a Wrangler that has a factory amplified system, you're good to go. No need to read any further. However, if you have a non-amplified vehicle, let's have a look at what that says. So we have a Wrangler, Jeep Wrangler / Gladiator. Compatible with all screen sizes, 5-inch, 7-inch, and 8-inch. So it looks like if you have a Wrangler, you're good to go. Now, just to note, if you didn't have a Wrangler and you looked up an Amp Pro and got this, you would need to take notice that it is only compatible in vehicles with the 7-inch or 8-inch screen. So that means any Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Jeep product that doesn't have an amplifier and is not a Wrangler or a Gladiator, if it's got the 5-inch radio, it's not going to work. Normally I wouldn't mention things that weren't related to the vehicle we're looking up, but this is a big one, so I just want to note that for anyone else looking for anything and happens across this video. So there's an Amp Pro and a Wrangler. Let's do one last vehicle. So up here we can search by vehicle up here too. That way you don't have to go back to the home page there. So let's do a 2012 GMC Yukon because that was a confusing year for GM. Search. Now this one might take a minute to load because there are quite a few products that are associated with this vehicle. Okay, here we go with the results. So again, we're presented with many options. All the way, radio replacement, line output converter, smartphone, all that. So what we're going to focus on is radio replacement again. So we'll check radio replacement, get rid of everything. So now we see we have a GM3A RSTX, we have RP5s, we have RP4s, we have C2R, OS5, LCs. Okay, so what's the difference? Let's run through them. The GM3A RSTX, that is a Radio Pro Advanced. So that is the flagship model, top of the line, full featured, retains everything, map protected, full blown, best of the best. Next we have the RP5s. So RP5s retain OnStar, steering wheel controls, rear seat entertainment, all that. RP4 retains steering wheel controls and rear seat entertainment. Notice we have a 31 and a 32. We'll get to that in a minute. So now we have our digital radio interfaces. What are these? So a C2R, it's only going to provide you with accessory and nav signals such as reverse, VSS, parking brake. Nav 1129, same thing, accessory, nav output signals. So an OS5 is a little bit different. It retains your OnStar, but it does not retain steering wheel controls. But it also gives you your nav output signals as well as retaining reverse camera, stuff like that. OSGM LAN 44, that's a harness that can be used with the OS5, so that's like an RP5 GM31, 32. We'll get to that in a minute. Then here we have the LC GM29, which we saw a different version of that in the 18 Silverado. Alright, so let's go up here and figure out which one do we need. How do I know which one I need? So let's say we want to go with an RP5. Well, do I need a GM31 or a 32? I don't know. Let's go look. Here we have the RP5 GM31. We'll click on that. Come down here to Compatibility Notes. Okay, so 2012 plus GM trucks and SUVs. Well, we know that applies to us because we're in a 2012 GMC Yukon. 2012 plus GM trucks and SUVs equipped with factory navigation radios require the GM32. So there's your difference. So if your 2012 GMC Yukon has a factory nav radio, then you need the GM32 because the plug, as you can see, is completely different. However, if your 2012 GMC Yukon is non-nav, then we're going to need the GM31, which is what we're on now. So let's read on. 2014 plus Silverado and Sierra. Only compatible with 25 and 100. So we don't care about that. We're not doing that. Next up, in premium amplified systems, there will be no fading capability of the aftermarket stereo. So that means if you've got a premium Bose system in this GMC Yukon, which if it's a Denali, it most likely does, that means there'll be no fader. Express fans, we don't care about. In order to retain the factory XM tuner, the aftermarket head unit must be equipped with an auxiliary input. So the GM31 and the 32 have right here output from the factory XM tuner, because in those years the tuner was separate from the radio. So we've given you the ability to retain that. However, your aftermarket head unit must have an auxiliary input. Also, the vehicle must be equipped with steering wheel controls, because that's how you control it, and a driver information center, because that's where you see the information. So if your aftermarket radio doesn't have aux in, or your vehicle doesn't have steering wheel controls or driver information center, then the XM tuner will not be retained. Let's go on. Sony Bluetooth steering wheel commands are only supported with revision 16614 or higher. So what does that mean? So that means that the firmware of this module must be this number or higher in order to retain Sony Bluetooth steering wheel control commands. We'll talk about firmware here in a minute. So, does not retain escalating tones of parking sensor proximity. So what does that mean? So that means in later model vehicles, it was like 14 and up Acadias and such. They would they had backup sensors, and once you got closer to an object, the volume of the tone would go up the closer you got. This will not retain those escalating tones. It just beeps the same volume every time. Does not retain lane departure or forward collision warnings. So again, the 14 and up vehicles that have lane departure, that is where the car senses you're, swerving or coming up really close on someone. It beeps at you. We do not retain those. So, we're looking at a 2012 Yukon here, but, just think that's relevant for anyone with a later model vehicles. Something else, too, down here at the bottom is the related products. So what these are products that are related to this. So in this case, the GM RVD. So while this RP5 GM31 will power up the rear seat entertainment system and keep it happy, you will also need the GM RVD in order to send video and audio to and from that rear screen. The PAC up, that's what you need to update firmware on these modules. I'm going to make another video that covers how to use the PAC up, how to update firmwares. But while we're talking about firmware, let's go have a look here. So, Sony Bluetooth steering wheel commands are only supported with revision 16614 or higher. So you see there's a tab right here that says Firmware Revisions. Under this, you get instructions on how to update. We'll cover that in another video. And you also get a complete revision history of everything that has happened with this module. So, what version did it say we needed? Let's go back and look. 16614 or higher. Well, it looks like the current revision is 46619, so it's been a while since 16614 was out. So it looks like 14 might have been an interim firmware that wasn't released, so 16616 came out February 13th, 2015. So that means that if you've purchased this module recently, then pretty good chance you don't need to update the firmware. But, there's a revision history here going all the way back to November 30th, 2012, which was the initial release. So then instruction manuals. Let's talk about that. Instruction manuals, tech briefs, they can all be found under this Documents tab here. And, you can see there's a little bit of stuff here. So the instruction manual, you got Rev 4, then you got another Rev that uses a date. Another rev here that uses a date, and then we have a tech brief, loss of accessory 12 volt. So notice that the instruction manuals coincide with firmware revisions. So if you've got a really old firmware and need to know how to work it, then you would want to download this one. Or if you've got this version firmware, you would download this one. Or if you've got this version firmware, you would download this one, so on. So under this Documents tab on any product page, can be found instruction manuals, tech briefs, or any other supporting documentation. There is also an application guide under each product page. that gives you a full breakdown of everything that is compatible. And notice here this '07 GMC Sierra non-classic. And in 2017 Acadia, it must be a classic. '07 Silverado, non-classic. So those are things that we covered in the previous video with the body styles, but I just thought it was worth noting there. So there you have it. That's how the product pages work, where to find certain information. And as I said earlier, in the next video, I will do how to download firmware and how to update your module. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.